All right. Good afternoon. Uh, my teacher, Professor Anand Kumar, is not here. He'll be here soon. My teacher, Professor Nilika Mehrotra, dear colleagues, students, and friends, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to share a few words on my association with Professor Anand Kumar and his work on globalization and social justice. Before I go into his work, let me say a big thank you to him for all the help and support he has provided to me, not just during my MPhil time with him, but also since then. I came to JNU in 2002 as a not very confident MPhil student. I did not have any scholarship. Even I could not properly speak English or Hindi. A teacher of mine from Hyderabad University had suggested that I should work with Professor Anand Kumar, right, for my MPhil. And a lot of my MPhil classmates also wanted to work with him. So it was a very big and tough decision for him, who should he take and who should he not take, right? And when the results came out, finally the results came out, he pasted in the notice board, I was one of the so-called quote-unquote chosen ones, along with my good friend Manish Tiwari here and Renu Binod, right? So it was one of my happiest days. And my 2.5 years with him as an MPhil student, as well as in JNU, have been the most memorable time of my life. He has helped me and many others like me in so many ways that it's difficult to narrate all those incidents. Today, I would just like to say a big thank you to Professor Anand Kumar and wish him a very happy and healthy life ahead. Let me now say a little bit about Professor Anand Kumar and his pioneering work or contributions on the study of globalizations and its profound impact on Indian society and beyond. For me, Professor Anand Kumar's scholarship stands out for its synthesis of theoretical and empirical research, as well as empathetic reflection. He has continually urged his students to look at every global phenomena, not just in isolation, but in its structural and systemic context. He has guided generations of sociologists, as we can see today, and many of us are gathered here, right, to question, to analyze, and to engage with the changing world. One of his most influential works, Understanding Globalization and Emerging India, is an anthology of essays that brings clarity to the complex interplay between global modernity and local resistance. At a time when scholars were captivated by the promise of global interdependence or interconnectedness, or what Marshall McLuhan called global village, Professor Anand Kumar showed that while globalization has created many opportunities, including economic integration and technological advancements, it has also widened the gap between the rich and the poor and weakened the welfare state, limiting its capacity to deliver social justice and welfare for the marginalized communities. According to Professor Kumar, India's development trajectory under globalization reveals a dual reality, remarkable growth amid growing disparity, which some people have talked about this morning, right? For him, Indian experience of globalization is a story of both hope and relative deprivation. He has argued that globalization has created not just new opportunities for economic growth and social mobility, but also new forms of exclusion, inequality, and marginalization, visible specifically along the lines of caste, class, gender, and religion. In particular, Professor Anand Kumar has argued that globalization has not dissolved caste and caste-based inequalities, In fact, the overall structure of caste and caste stratification has endured and even intensified under globalization dynamics due to the uneven access of resources, education, and power. In his work, Professor Kumar highlights the winners and losers of global processes and draws our attention to not just who is poor or who is excluded, but how social transformation creates new layers of inequalities. Right. Professor Jodhka this morning also talked about how inequality is also about humiliation. Right. Through numerous examples in his book, he demonstrates that globalization's impacts are never uniform. Professor Kumar has also discussed the shift from state-led development to policies of liberalization, privatization, and globalization, or what we call the LPG model of development. According to him, the rolling back of the welfare state has had significant adverse implications for the marginalized communities of India. In a recent paper which was published in 2024, he challenges the idea that market reforms alone can solve social problems and shows how the LPG model of development, which has been upheld by many as the panacea, right, has in fact created several deficits which Professor Mehta just talked about, such as development deficit, governance deficit, legitimacy deficit, democracy deficit, citizenship deficit, nation building deficit, and environmental deficit. Professor Kumar particularly criticizes the LPG paradigm and cautions against its effects on Indian democracy and inclusive development. To him, it is time to recognize the LPG paradigm is the root cause of agrarian crisis, jobless growth, and various exclusions and discriminations. Professor Anand Kumar's work reminds us that progress and development cannot mean blind following of globalization. He argues passionately to make a shift from the LPG model of development as advocated by the World Bank and the developed countries to the Sustainable Development Growth Model, Sustainable Development Goals Model, or SDG model of the UNDP, and urges us to frame our responses rooted in inclusivity, local wisdom, and democratic participation. He has not confined his influence to the classroom or academic publishing, as we have been hearing since the morning, right? Through his public sociology approach, which Professor Anand Kumar spoke about in the morning and also Professor Jodhka discussed in the morning, which I think is a very careful and deliberate intermingling of scholarship, activism, and network building, Professor Anand Kumar has tried his whole life to encourage a dialogue between academia and the grassroots social movements. As we mark this 75th milestone, we are celebrating the life of a public sociologist who has consistently stood with the marginalized and their cause. On this occasion, I would urge all of us to revisit and commit to some of the questions that Professor Kumar has raised. How can we create a globalization that is not just profitable, but also inclusive, sustainable, and humane? He also asks that how can we ensure that India's rise in the global order brings advancement not only to a few, but for all. In closing, I once again would like to wish him a very happy birthday. May his work continue to inspire the younger generation of scholars and create a just, sustainable, and equitable global future for all. Thank you so much.